Hey everyone, welcome to Family System Files. Today we're going to talk about a really interesting topic that has gone quite viral in the last couple weeks. There was a woman by the name of Jessica Leigh that originally went viral because she was part of a support group on Facebook regarding parental alienation, custody battles, and so forth. A lot of us are kind of all in the same kind of community and platform. There was a post that said something along the lines of, many prayers to you and your family on Jessica's page, which indicated that she had apparently taken her life. I actually was one that read this story, and at first I was hesitant until it started getting posted as articles in other, parental advocacy, credible pages. I read about her whole story on one of these credible pages, and I'm not going to throw names or anything like that in this video because I just feel like it's irrelevant. It's not necessary, and nor do we need to start getting finger pointy on people, because I was one of them, right? So what happened was that it spread like wildfire. Everybody had extreme empathy, and there was this movement happening, and myself included was actually very grateful that this was occurring because it was spreading awareness of what occurs in family custody matters and family court and how it can psychologically impact other parents. However, there was a massive turn of events within just 24 hours of the story going wildfire. And if you were a part of it, you know what occurred. And if you weren't, and if you've never heard of this story, well, welcome aboard. Jessica Leigh was a beautiful woman who apparently had a little boy named Harrison. And this is the story that I caught wind of, that she was fighting in court for custody over her son, and she was first given supervised visitations that eventually were then removed. After that, Jessica went to Supreme Court and was then again denied. We didn't know the background, the context of why Jessica was denied. However, from a social media aspect, she looked like a genuine, beautiful, loving mother. Alongside that, she also stated that Harrison now resides with her sister, who is now married to Harrison's father. So with that being said, there was an ultimate layer of betrayal that occurred, so empathy really poured out. I myself know exactly what it feels like to have family turn their backs on you. Unfortunately, when we discovered within 24 hours, there was a lot of twists and turns and a lot of different stories coming out. One, that Jessica Leigh was in fact alive, or that perhaps Jessica was just an AI platform. Others were saying they spoke to her personally and that she is alive, but there are more layers to the story than people even understand. Fast forward a week later, there was mugshots being shared of the apparent Jessica Leigh, who goes under the name, I believe Jessica Dalton was her last name, stating she was incarcerated for things alongside of fentanyl, methamphetamines, and clearly not a credible parent. So, what a wild story and a ride that we all took a part of, myself included. I've had so many different opinions and thoughts, and it was really frustrating because I just started to build my platform, and I was like, this is the perfect story to start with. And boy, I was mistaken. And I was disgruntled, and I was frustrated, and I was mad, and I was kind of like, okay, another brick wall. Should I continue making these videos? Should I continue this platform? Because I do not want to spread misinformation. But you know what I started to discover is that this is actually a better topic to discuss. How things can get twisted from one to another, and there are multiple facets and dimensions and things that we can look at when it comes to people's situations. I don't think we're in a world like we were in the 90s and the 80s and even the early 2000s before the digital era really occurred. Back then, information was something that was a gift, to have a source of knowledge. That's what we went to school for. But fast forward to 2026, and that's not necessarily the case. We have information at our fingertips. We can access all sorts of information. But now it's about credibility of that information. And misinformation can be easily spread, like in the case of Jessica Leigh. Now, ultimately, we all knew and related to Jessica Leigh's story because we're all struggling. And we all understand that there's corruption going on in family court. At first, I started questioning even if this was something behind the scenes that was debunking the credibility of Jessica Leigh for the mere fact that it was gaining traction online, because it's a possibility. I also started speculating when I saw that one woman was claiming that she was Jessica's sister. I did a little background check, and this woman had a pretty incriminating background record. I can't say for certain that that was actually the background of her specifically, just because I was limited on what I could actually search in my background check application. However, from what the photo looked like, she didn't exactly look like a credible human being, to be honest. Now, with that said, please forgive me if you are Jessica's sister and you were speaking this truth. However, it's very difficult to discern. And I think that's where we have to start understanding that we need to do some extra digging and maybe holding off on facts, sharing information before we jump on board, like myself. However, who in their right mind would fake their death and do such a thing? But apparently, there are people on this planet that do. And apparently she was getting some, financial gain from it, for all I know. I'm not going to go too far deep into the story of Jessica now that I know that there are 500 different stories for this Jessica, and perhaps this Jessica is not even a real Jessica. If you look at her photos, they are very filtered. A lot of them looked AI generated, so it's very questionable. But let's get to the real point of why Jessica's story started to spread. It started to spread because we all had sympathy for a mother who couldn't take it anymore with family court. Because we all know what it's like to fight family court, and we all know the hardships. Now, with that being said as well, I just think that it's important to take into account that sometimes people lose their parenting rights for valid reasons. But that doesn't seem like that's the common theme these days. It's not just because they're not credible, it's because of whatever's going on behind the scenes with family court, whatever mood they're in, whatever they draw conclusions to. There seems to be an extreme disconnect in family court, and I personally think it started right when the pandemic started and all court hearings started going Zoom. I feel like there are definitely some things going on with courts and attorneys. Come to find out, lots of the cases that I have listened to, a lot of the attorneys used to work for the judges, work for the court system, or have some sort of association. It's starting to feel a little bit more like Gotham City mob style when you're entering into family court than it is an actual structured, balanced, rightful justice system that, you can put your faith into to help you in parenting matters. And that's the case for me as well. I have gone to 2 court cases now with 2 of my exes who basically colluded against me during a very awful, atrocious divorce. Now, have I been a saint? Absolutely not. Did I react? I sure did. So I do take accountability. However, my 2 exes, that is the last thing on their priority list, is to take accountability. The disrespect continues. The violations keep on rolling. And unfortunately, the court systems do not care to take accountability for their own actions of negligence of these 2 individuals not taking any accountability. I'm not sure why court systems just brush off violated court orders, but they put them in place, and then other times they'll throw you in the clink if you don't cooperate. I don't think there's really a rhyme or reason to any of it. I think it's all nonsensical, and that is the unfortunate process of family court. Is that it's kind of a free-for-all. Now, if you watch my prior video, it talks about the origin of family court and how it actually originated in juvenile detention centers. So it started in juvenile court, not detention centers, but in juvenile court, because there wasn't a court system for family court. You just dealt with your patriarchal husband, and he called all the shots, and the child was actually looked at as almost like an asset to the father. So fathers were rewarded children in the beginning originally. Once the industrial era picked up, that's when mothers started gaining leverage in court. Nowadays, they claim to be 50-50 and equal parenting, and this is where we have a lot of tug-of-wars happening in the court system, because sometimes that breakup or divorce occurred for very valid reasons. These 2 people aren't going to get along. One of them is probably abusive. and controlling, while the other one just wanted peace. And that was the case for me. However, they also like to play with the law, making false allegations, doing things strategically to dismantle your life, your career, and coercively control you. And these things aren't factored into family court, which is horrific. And this is why we see lives being taken every day. In these cases, the cans get kicked further and further and further. And we all know there's a lot of money situations going on to drag these cases, which is being revealed through, the Title 4D and Title something else. But I just want to voice a little bit of my personal opinion. And I'm very disappointed to hear that Jessica Leigh's story was unfortunately not one that we can all stand behind. It breaks my heart. Because for a moment there, I had hope. I had hope that somebody could hear my story. And the fact is that I did share that story with some of my relatives who have kind of dismissed the struggles I have gone through. And people don't understand ambiguous grief and being alienated from your children. And they look at you like you must be the problem. It's maddening because it is the most crucial, painful thing. And you feel like you're screaming into a void and nobody is hearing you. For a moment, her story made me feel seen and heard. Her story resonated with those who seemed, so to speak, detached from my circumstances, but suddenly grew empathy and awareness. I'm not sure why humanity needs to have some sort of news article about somebody's death, about taking their life, and to have her be a quite appealing, pretty mother for it to resonate. Imagine if, let's say, Jessica's pictures weren't so flattering. What if Jessica was of a different color? Would it have still spread like wildfire as it did? Those are the questions I want to ask people. Why do we dismiss some things and why do we credit others? Why does it take somebody's life for us to gain awareness of what's going on in the system? Why can't people just support one another? And it blows my mind too at the fact that, for instance, my ex has a large family and I have been ganged up on, bullied, triangulated, slandered, intentionally had my career dismantled, people falsifying documents, lying on the stand, calling and making false calls to CPS and police. And I just can't even fathom how he has congregated all these people to hate me. But then I think I must have some sort of light inside of me that really makes these people uncomfortable to be so nasty towards me when all I did was genuinely be kind to them and try to show them love. I guess that's what happens when you grow out of people and they don't want to see you flourish, because that would mean that they would have to look at the mirror and where they are comfortably sitting. And that's unfortunately some high school And unfortunately, I procreated with two people that didn't even graduate high school. So I guess you lay with dogs and you get fleas. And that's funny because my ex-husband used to say that. And I'm like, you the dog. You the dog, bro. I'm the goat. No, I'm just kidding. But regardless to say, and then you have the other side, right? So like you have my side and I've been over here just, little old me. I remember I walked into court and my stepson's mother filed a next of friend PPO on me. And that is a very long story. And it all stemmed from the fact that during my divorce, my ex-husband bought my stepson a BMW and made me trade in my vehicle. And then I found out at the end of their judgment of divorce, when I called to get him off my auto insurance, I had discount auto insurance because I was an educator, that my stepson's vehicle was under me and I was apparently the driver. That was fun to discover. So when I discovered that, the insurance agents told me I had to prove that I wasn't the driver. Well, then I'm getting called that I'm a stalker. I didn't stalk anybody. My son, actually, who was 12 at the time, was coached to go through my phone, and a friend of mine were talking about trying to find the vehicle, not my stepson. And as a matter of fact, I reached out to her husband, my stepson's stepdad, telling him that he was driving a vehicle, and if he got into a car accident, it would be me that would probably be getting sued if anything were to happen. and I wasn't a fan, clearly. So, needless to say, the mom went ahead and filed a next of friend PPO on me. At this point, somebody had anonymously sent a letter to my employer, and my son was just court ordered to the district where I was educating at. Next thing you know, I'm forced to resign. I don't like to disclose a lot of this because, still trying to pursue myself an field in education come fall, but we'll leave it at that. So, anywho, I ended up going in court, and here he was walking in with the ex-baby mama who claimed abuse on this man and actually told me he wished he was unalived at one point. And I did nothing but try to be nice to her for years on end. She was nothing but a nasty little booger. There was moments where we befriended each other, and there's such a long story to my case and my situation, and it's just not going to go into this video right now. However, she went in there claiming all kinds of crazy things. My ex and her were sharing my medical files that he was digging up in the house. She submitted them in, which is a violation of HIPAA. She put in all kinds of misinformation and falsified documents. It was insane. And she walks in here with his big family. 15, I think it was 15 family members came in. Even my stepson, she dragged into the courtroom for this drama. It was a circus. And the judge looked at all of them and just me sitting there with one person, which was a domestic violence support person. And she was like, this is some Hatfield and McCoy shit. And I was like, yeah, except for there's one McCoy and there's 100 of them. Do the math, right? Clearly getting ganged up here. And then, they were picking on me for struggling with my mental health. This is ridiculous. So that's what bothers me, though, is how everybody can just chase a narrative without even looking into the context of what's actually going on, or because they feel like it's something to do with them, right? My stepson's mother, she was just bitter. She just wanted to spite me and get me back for marrying him. And she was always jealous because he made better money than the next abuser that she married. So it's just, misery loves company. And so, I just wanted to move on with my life. I genuinely don't care to hurt these people. And I really thought about was the children. And I'm just thinking, what a ridiculous thing you're doing, bringing him in here to talk poorly about somebody that he called, I'm going to get emotional, called mom since he was 3 years old. And I was never able to have that kind of relationship with my stepson that I did with my own. And my ex-husband had a closer relationship with my own than he did with that one because, those two were very controlling and narcissistic over the child. And I was just fine, he's my nacho kid. He also was very disrespectful towards me quite a bit. And it was very hard, caring and trying to be a mom. But I did my best. And I tried in every way I knew how. But once he hit his teen years, it became quite challenging. But, and then here I am on my side. And, I have friends that support me. And I have people that have spoken up for me. But it's very few and far between. I don't have a big gang of people just ready to rally in with me. I barely even get anybody to have the time to go to court with me. And I forgive that, and it's fine because I know it's a lot. I've been in court probably about 35 times in a year. So, it's a lot. And people don't understand it. And I think they get intimidated by the large family. They're scared they're going to come after them and blah, 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 blah. However, every time somebody sits back and says, I don't want to get involved, I don't want any part of this, or, I support you, but I'm going to stand over here about it, or I'm going to go support them and you and play both sides. When you see abuse going on, and to the point of the level where it's at with myself, where I'm being told to unalive myself, where, they're making false allegations. I guess people start, they start questioning you. They start wondering if you're authentic. They start looking at you with a stinky eye. But I just can't believe it because if you look at my ex and you look at my life, I'm like, come on. He's living at home with a Porsche and he's already gone through 2 ex-girlfriends that he's recycled from prior. And one of them now is a witness and has come forth and told me even more about the shenanigans that's been going on that it was just, oh my gosh, it spins my head. And I'm working on a video to share everything, but, I have to tread lightly here because it is a lot, and I've been through a lot, and it takes a lot for me to get myself out here. However, I just want to get back to my point. We all wanted that support. We wanted Jessica's voice to be seen and heard because it was part of ours. We all wanted people to wake up and see what's going on in family court. And all it did was just basically wash all that out and make us look even worse. And it's maddening. It's really, really upsetting. And, in my heart, I wanted to believe that it wasn't true. No, please don't tell me it's true. Maybe there's a twist or a turn. And it seems like every story in 2026, including my life story, has so many different particles to it, moving pieces. It's not all like, black and white and a happily ever after or a tragedy is just A to B. It's kind of like all of our lives right now. There's so many different directions things are going, different perspectives, different angles of things, different layers to the story. And I think that's because we're transcending into a different realm when we're moving into this digital era, and like people's lives are getting a little more complicated and more complex, and things are not just so easy to visibly see and figure out. Everybody's got a dark side. Everybody's got a little bit of a flaw to them, right? And so it's confusing. Like, we all want that, like, prefrontal cortex, like, this person was perfect and they deserved it, or, they deserve to be a mom, right? Or, the story's fully true, or this person's a good parent. And no, that's not always the case. Like, there's a lot of mess involved, right? Like, a lot of us gravitated to abusive men, which I learned myself was, the dogs are going crazy. Please excuse me. So, but a lot of the thing is that, like, we all want to believe these stories and we want to have all these things, but then there's multiple sides to everything. And then, like, it's like an onion being peeled. We discover that there's so much more to a story than meets the eye. And so I learned that I got to hold back a little bit, right? And then you got to think about family court too. Like, not all judges I want to believe are terrible, right? And maybe a lot of the time they just can't decipher what's what, right? And so they're just kind of trying to figure it out themselves. I think it's very frustrating, though, because they don't even take a look at the paperwork. So how could you even draw a conclusion if you're not even doing your dang job, right? And that's the part that makes me mad. You guys are just going off the flighty receipts. I mean, I can't even tell you. They're judicial actors. Literally, he's like acting. Like, he's like pulling through paper and saying like, oh, I see there's emails in your motion. I'm like, there's not one single email in my motion. I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, he's pretending to know what he doesn't even know what he's looking at. It's insane, guys. So, I don't even know. I'm just rattling off. This is my rant today. I'm really upset about Jessica Leigh. I'm really mad about that. I was really hoping that we could have this story to have everybody kind of like, identify and relate and have some heart back in here, right? But unfortunately, that wasn't the case. But it doesn't mean that it's not happening everywhere, because it is, And I guess these kind of stories are going on too, so we have to figure out what's fact or fiction. And it sucks. Like, for instance, for me, it's like, why do I need to have somebody like pass away in a news article for people to feel some sort of empathy for my situation? And then I like see friends online that are like family members. Like, I'm in my 40s and people's parents are passing away. And so they're like posting this stuff and everybody gets an outpour of love, right? But like my situation, they just all kind of scratch their head and go, I don't want to touch that. Well, I'm grieving in the worst degree possible. Do you know what it's like to have ambiguous grief? I pray to God you never do. It's horrible, but nobody cares or can't like conceptualize it. If it's not black and white thinking, if it's not barbarian thoughts, people can't grab it. And with that being said, Amazon came and delivered a package and these dogs won't shut their traps. So I'm going to go get my package. Thanks for checking in. Thanks for coming in, guys. And come back to my next rant.